boy Uncle Frank from FamousHipHopRadio.com, and we're in the vinyl room, and we're at the iconic record store as the record turns with my man Kevin Donan. We're going to get into an interview right now and show you all the history that this man has to offer on FamousHipHopRadio.com. How you doing, Kevin?
I'm fine, Frank. Thank you so much for stopping by.
All right, man. Tell me, we want to go into a little history first before we get into all this great music. Where did your love of music start with at least collecting vinyl?
Well, it was by accident. In the late 50s, my father, who loved jazz and blues and a little bit of what was coming into light in the late 50s when I was born, I really was an avid TV watcher at 3 years old, 4 years old, and saw that company Whammo that had invented the hula hoop, but they also invented the Frisbee.
Mm-hmm.
So I went downstairs in the wintertime and saw what I thought was Frisbees. And they were these 10-inch black Frisbees, for what I thought. So I opened the back door. The snow was up to our knees, and I just threw them out. But they didn't return. So that was in January. And so my father was hollering, where was this Charlie Parker, Coltrane, and these Miles Davis. I didn't know these names at 3.5 years old. So then when the snow melted in March, it looked like black Stonehenge. And then I got a belt whooping, made me know what
they were.
Records, High Respect.
Yes, sir.
And so, but at the same time, living in the middle of Flint, Michigan in the 60s, we heard country and western, we heard rock and roll. I actually witnessed the Beatles coming on TV and actually watched, Oswald get shot. So a lot of things are real in our lives with the media as it is today. So took a liking to listening to soul music and all the other genres, because Flint was a very diversified city. It had General Motors at the time, and they had flown in so many different nationalities of people that were technicians and designers. And so that spun off, and I was able to eat the foods of these other places because they had this thing called the International Institute. And you go and there's somebody dressed up in they're Greek or they're European, or pretty much it was a white and black community.
Right.
There was no Mexicans in Flint, Michigan, except one family.
Right.
And so and us being part black and Japanese.
Yeah.
And so you learn the ropes of music and cultures quickly, because you get to know who you are, right, and you make your friends and associations from there. So. Met Red Fox, coming out of a car when I was about 11 years old. He was going into a club, early in the afternoon to pick up his money. That's what he said.
Oh, okay.
Go get my money, son.
So he's playing in Flint, Michigan.
Yeah. Ray Charles, they played there for $25.
Right.
Yeah, it was a lot of different, in the 50s and 60s. And my uncle was a factory worker, but he had a little extra change and had a moving company, and he had put on some shows and things that I heard, and other opportunities arose, but he just stuck to what he liked. And so I heard that side of the family was involved in little nightclub things, but I just stuck to the books and enjoyed music. And then later on, at my first year of high school, played basketball, but I said to myself, I didn't think that was going to be my whole career.
Right.
I had a big sports background, but I moved from that and went into self-taught drums at 16, and then within being 15 and a half to 16 and a half years old, I formed a band, and we opened for the Dells, the Ohio Players, and George Clinton's Parliament Funkadelic with Bootsy's first tour with them.
Okay.
Yeah, with America Eats Its Young album.
Oh, okay. That's nice.
So that aspect of me being a drummer was pretty much a focal point then. And in my early 20s, came out to California and started my life here.
Now, what made you come to California in the beginning?
Saw Motown leave. Recording studios were about 90 miles away.
Right.
And those were already the bedrock for Motown, other artists that were not coming out to California, right, and other labels that were there. So it was just, the automobile industry was still hot, but I just said, how long?
Right.
So I said, let me decide to come to California and take a shot for it. It was either go to New York or here.
Right.
and take a shot at it. And there was a young lady that had an aspiring opportunity for as a vocalist, and we decided to come out here together. And within about 4 months after grooming her, and Herbie Hancock gave me a little guidance on changing the music of her original demo that she had produced, got her to get on the Gong Show, national and she won.
Oh, okay.
And then after that, in that same first year, 4 months later, we got a phone call. It was a cold call. We went to an audition. A lot of people was there, but the audition was secured by her, and then it was Stevie Wonder. So,
oh, wow.
So my first year here, I was the one that was able to get that individual a contract with Stevie Wonder.
That's a big deal. Well, that's a big catapult right there to be able to jump right into it like that.
Well, I like I said, I had formed my own band when I was 16.
Right.
So the contracts, and I wanted to go to law school for entertainment, but it would eat up so much of my time, and I had to put a roof over my head.
Right.
And so I decided to buy the same books that they read in law school,
Okay.
and entertainment law, and understand publishing and things like that.
Right, right. And that's, kind of what you're into now, understanding the publishing. You're able to know how the monies are, being transferred back and forth between the artists and
that's true, but there's a lot of other things that help gel the baby steps. Like there was I was selling clothes,
Right.
men's haberdashery, very fine men's suits on Hollywood Boulevard when I first got, to make sure the rent was paid.
Right.
But upstairs there was a recording studio.
Okay.
With these hippies.
Wow.
And so I went up there and in my suit and started pushing a fader and anchored myself there for 2 or 3 years and brought in the Silvers and some of the sidemen with Earth, Wind and Fire and some of the guys from Kool and the Gang and things like that.
Yeah.
It was very inexpensive, and then I started brokering sessions for guys because people of color didn't really have money. They could be famous, but didn't have true money to have a recording studio at their home in the late 70s,
Right.
early 80s.
Right.
And I tell young guys today, and they say, well, listen to this beat that I got on my phone. And I said, how long did that take you? They said, that took 15 minutes.
Right.
I said, well, our studio time was running $175 an hour
Exactly.
for several months,
Exactly.
till you got it right.
And that's the difference between today and yesterday. It's a lot of things have changed. The quality of the music has changed. The quality of the sound of music has also changed.
Mhm.
And a lot of guys I know, like Dave Aaron and different big engineers, they've tore down their big studios because there's just not people coming in to pay those high dollars for those studios for these cats that are doing it on their phones pretty much.
Yeah. I went to a studio where I brought in Michael Jackson's drummer,
Right.
Jonathan Sugarfoot Moffett, and that was at Larrabee Sound Studios. I had Barney Perkins, who was very famous with so many recordings. He was the best drum engineer you could find in town.
Mm-hmm.
And took him into the control room, and he asked me to play the track first. I said, well, he said, I heard you play drums before.
Yeah.
I said, okay. But my point is, it was a huge room. And so that was like 1983, and a lot of people had used that famous, Leon Silvers was there all the time.
Leon Silvers was active in the 80s.
That was one of his studios that he was always in, and A and B, and I would use it with another client. And Record Plant was down the street, and Westlake, a lot of Devonshire, a lot of the famous studios. And those were like $150, $175 an hour, no deals.
Right.
And so what happened is that at that point, what I recall is that Dr. Dre had asked me to come in to see him at a session, and that same room. And this is like 83. So it's about 10 years later, I walk into the same room. They had redesigned it. Because I remember I opened the door one time in 83, and leaning on the door, I hit his head, was Don Cornelius. He was listening to my session. I was like, oh, okay.
What you doing?
Because it was like about actually 8 feet from the pathway to go to that door. So for me to hit him, he had committed to have his ear leaning the door, listening to some music that I was producing for a client. And he said, oh, I'm sorry, but man, that sounds pretty great. I said, well, thank you. So this time I'm walking in the room with Dr. Dre, and the whole room has been changed. The console room is made larger
Wow.
for them to hang out. And I actually had stepped on Snoop Dogg, who was sleeping on the floor.
Sleeping on the floor in the studio.
Just working around the clock. That was
Right.
where his album was not out yet. His very first album was
Right.
not out yet.
Right.
Yeah, this was like 93, I think.
Yeah.
92 and a half, 93.
So a lot of guys, you know, so is that the time when you started acquiring a lot of these albums, a lot of these sounds and stuff like
No,
that?
this is actually about 6 to 8 years earlier.
Okay.
You know, in the late 80s, there was a warehouse in L.A. near Paramount Film Studios that had hundreds of thousands, nearly almost 1 million records, hundreds of thousands of 45s as well, all alphabetically, near Paramount Film Studios, that we would get calls every day from the corporate structure: Paramount Film Studios, Sony Pictures, MCA, Universal Records,
Right.
all the record labels, Capitol, Elektra, and they needed information that was not readily available. There was no Google.
Right.
And so I was able to see, because the warehouse was literally not open for the public. We were like a mail order service, and everything was pretty much really clean. So we started sending to Japan and Europe, and then all of a sudden I used to get this phone call from this guy, and I had heard his name before. He really didn't sound like a threat, because the people didn't want to have anybody come into the place, only messengers to pick up the product.
Right.
And this guy says, "Kev, I know you got this record, and it's only me." I said, "Well, who is me?" "Biz Markie." I said, "Who again?" I heard the name, and I wasn't a big rap MTV person. You know,
Right.
I'm in the studio or working.
Right.
So I'm like, "Biz Markie, huh?" "Yeah, it's Biz Markie, and I know you have this 45. I just want to come in and get it, but I'm in Baltimore."
Oh,
I
man.
said, "But I'm coming out there." And I said, "Oh, well, I don't know if we have it open to the public." "Well, can you please open the door for me if I get there?" So that happened.
Yeah.
And so he was literally one of the first walk-in rap artists that I was
Okay.
dealing with. And we're still friends today.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, that explains it. So word of mouth goes around, and
Howie
people
T
start-
was calling, but we were federally expressing him 2-3 times a week. He,
Right.
he did Roxanne,
Right.
and he did what's that very famous one? I'm Gonna Sex You Up. I think. Yeah.
Color Me Bad.
Yeah. He
Yeah.
produced that.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
See, I always look at a lot of different songs that people really don't pay attention to, and that's when kind of rap was kind of venturing into R&B and stuff like that. And there was still a lot of, R&B and hip hop, producers that were, getting into producing songs on the other side that, they still today are classic records, So tell me about some of these classic records we got here in the back here. I know there's thousands of them, but we got some special ones here.
I'm gonna pull out some that I really feel really proud about, because I work with some of these artists. I created an archive called The Program,
Right.
and once you had fulfilled the obligations financially,
Right.
you could then come and get 50 to 100 records at a time, no DJing on them, and you brought them back.
Right.
And so these individuals ended up becoming very iconic. Like all these are thank yous from the artists. This is DJ Quick. This is the Safe and Sound album
Safe
on
and
Pro-
Sound
on
record,
Profile. I'm plastered on this one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I remember a lot of those joints, so I got to go back and listen to them and hear where all those samples and all those mixes I hear in there. That record, I know where they came from.
And
now.
well, here's another thing of the reason why maybe a lot of people out there are saying, "Well, who is this guy?" I had turned down interviews
Right.
for 8 years
Right.
during the 90s, because that was one of the first questions that they would ask.
Who is this guy?
Not who is this guy, what samples did you give him?
Ah.
And so I didn't know if their clearance departments had cleared everything.
Right.
And so I was thinking ahead, because some of the guys said they had put my name on the albums, thank you, and some had not. Sometimes it takes so long for them to come up, put the album out. I'm forgotten,
Right.
by the crew.
Right.
And but it was compensated with the cash or the mutual agreement up front.
Right.
But what happened is that's one of the first things that would be asked is what did you get? What sample did you give? And so I thought I better protect myself and them. So
And then back in that time too, that's when it was really going through the whole, legality
Correct.
of copyrights and hip hop, because it was so sample heavy in the beginning that a lot of artists didn't know that they, were even doing it, and then they were going back, similar to James Brown and George Clinton and a lot of these guys
Right.
that were real sample heavy, trying to recoup, what these records were making from hip hop.
right.
You know.
Well, that you're so right, Frank. So what I saw was that it was better to just be dormant in the time.
Right.
And unfortunately, it was a lot of other individuals who ended up getting the job inside and turning these guys in. And so it wasn't me.
Quick was one of them, Dre was one of them. A lot
Yeah.
of guys, a lot of, it's hard to, clear all those samples, and it's such a great record that you don't want to leave it out. But what else you got back there?
Well, here's this one.
Ooh, with the perm.
This is Biz Markie.
Yeah.
And
So-
this one here is a gift from Biz. He would come in a lot of times. I remember once we didn't have Uber then,
Right.
and so what happened? It was raining hard, and the cabs were not coming to Hollywood that evening, and so I decided to give him a ride. My wife and I, we owned a Maserati at the time in the '90s, and so he just felt real nice and comfortable in the car.
Yeah.
We took him to the hotel.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Um,
What else you got in here, man? We got some classic stuff going on.
This one is really nice.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah. I'm taking this out. First time I've seen this in a long time. This is signed by DJ Quick.
Oh, okay.
No, this is signed by Q-Tip.
Q-Tip.
Yeah.
Okay. Iconic hip hop right here, man. It's classic stuff. Now, what'd you do for
Well,
Q-Tip?
Q-Tip was a frequent L.A. visitor, and once again, being able to have certain records that he was always interested in,
Right.
and pulling out the sounds. He's a very creative individual.
He has a big record collection too. I saw his record,
Right.
very nice record collection as well.
Mhm.
I saw a piece on him, and he's a vinyl head too. So
Right.
I-
His record collection got he lost a collection that was in a fire once.
yeah, he was talking
Yeah,
about that.
yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's very.
I'd hate for that to happen.
I know. Let's see what we got here. This is one of the locals in L.A.
Yeah,
The Far Side.
the Far Side.
This is from Fat Lip, who I saw not too long ago.
Hmm.
Matter of fact, we were together the day before he went to Japan on a tour, and
So you did a lot of samples, cleared a lot of samples, found some for.
yeah.
for
I
them.
mean, he's a local L.A. person, but he's very energetic. He was
Right.
on Delicious Vinyl,
Right.
and
I remember that.
yeah, and he was very. So this is a little different array of. Now this is interesting. This is I miss this guy. This is a Beatmaster, Ice-T's body count drummer,
Oh, okay.
and he passed away.
Okay.
Yeah, he was in Body Count,
Yeah. I
and he
remember
was
that
the
too.
drummer for them too.
A lot of people don't remember Body Count, but that was a turn in hip hop too. To
Right.
turn, for a hardcore rapper to have a rock group,
Mhm.
at that time, and then of course we know the song about Cop Killer, all the controversy it created and stuff, but that was a bold move for Ice-T to do that, but it was also, one of those iconic moments in hip hop as well.
Right. What's the name guy here? This one is
Oh, Pete Rock.
yeah, this is a classic.
Yeah.
Pete Rock.
Pete
New
Rock
York
is
City.
still smooth.
Mm-hmm.
Now, was he part of the program?
Pete Rock was a very intellectual record collector. His father was a radio DJ too,
Okay.
and an avid collector of music. And so he come up in New York with a wide range of music knowledge.
Okay.
Yeah,
People don't know those backstories about how these people came along. You just see them, you know, when they come out, and you just think they already have it. But the history of where these guys come from and their knowledge of music is, you know, it shows in their talent and how they come about doing this stuff. So,
Yeah, Pete Rock has a keen sense of vinyl.
right.
Keen sense. I mean, he's all over the board, and
Hmm.
he hears and sees a lot of things differently than some of the other producers.
Right, right.
Um, this is one of my favorite guys.
Oh, yeah.
I'm the first name mentioned in thank yous on this album.
Oh, yeah. Mr.
Regular.
Warren G.
Yeah.
G-Funk. So I noticed, too, you know, being that we're in Hollywood, we're in California, Los Angeles, it seems like the G-Funk sound, you know, started with, you know, a lot of the West Coast artists, and a lot of that sound came from, you know, Parliament Funkadelic and all the 70s soul.
Hmm.
So it seems like this is where G-Funk was born as well.
Well,
Somewhat.
somewhat. Well, we have to at least bring the truth to the table, because a lot of the urban families, they were listening to Johnny Taylor, they were listening to the Barkays and the Parliament Funkadelic, the Ohio Players,
Right.
a lot of the good mainstream Cameo, a lot of the good R&B 70s groups and late 60s, uh, so with that in mind, they were able to find so much within their parents' collections,
Right.
and then what were they affixed on the radios.
Right.
But when you ride through the subways of New York, I was just talking to Marcus Miller just recently, and he said you can get off the subway and you're in Jamaica, Queens,
Right.
and then you're in Spanish Harlem. So you're getting out, you're hearing a Latin thing where you weren't hearing that here. You might hear somebody riding down the street and it's Tex-Mex or mariachi music.
Right.
You're not going to hear Willie Bobo or Pancho Sanchez or
Right.
Tito Rodriguez. So here you had a hotbed of records that the distributors sent, because the commitments to the radio stations were playing R&B and soul and blues, at the stations in L.A.
Right.
in the
Right.
Southwest.
Right.
Yeah. And then I've got one last one here that I think maybe the people out there would like. And this is one particular individual that we started a music venture together.
Yeah, just speaking about G-Funk, there you are.
Yeah.
Mr. Dr. Dre himself.
What does that say?
Man, Kevin, thanks for your help. Stay up. Because he definitely needed your help to get that sound out. So you worked on both records for both Chronics.
Uh, uh, side by side on pretty much like a good 4 years of Death Row Records.
Right.
And it petered off in the last year because, as you can see in the Straight Outta Compton, he was focused on, finding a new direction.
Right.
And then after that, he had messengers to come by and pick up things that he already had his mind on.
Right.
You
right.
know,
Okay.
and
Okay.
yeah, that's
So
that's basically, this is one of the pinnacle albums that I really enjoyed, and have a couple friends that ended up, from my hometown, Dwight D. Lamont, Big Pimpin'
Yeah.
Williams. He wrote. We went to kindergarten together. He's on the Chronic and Snoop's album and some other
Okay.
stuff. Yeah.
So you got some good history with this record.
Oh yeah.
Okay. That was the record that was playing in every car in Los Angeles at the time when it came out. I was right down the street at the Palladium one night, weekend when it came out, and every single car that passed by was playing that record. And I knew, I said to myself, okay, this is bigger than, this is going to be, one of those things that changes the game,
Mm.
and it's going to be one of those things that lasts forever. So,
Well, strangely enough, one thing happened. I was at a record show in Orange County in in '92, and I laugh at this because I asked a friend of mine to bring a particular record. It was I think it was either Langston Hughes spoken word record or H. Rap Brown
mm-hmm.
and Last Poets. He asked him to bring those for me, and this is 1992. So he went to his car and unlocked the trunk, and we was going to sit and stand and chat for about 5-10 minutes, and he turned the car on, and there was this music just oozing out the speakers. And so I said, "Who is that?" He said, "You don't know who that is? You worked on that." I said, "Well, who's that?" He said, "That's the Chronic." I said, "Yeah, I've been, working with certain people in the beginning, and when they go to mix and stuff, I'm just way down the road on something else."
Job,
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's beautiful, man. So man, I look around all this stuff, and it's just so much history in here. I'm sure every record has, some kind of story to it because, I'm looking around. And it's like I'm an avid, vinyl collector myself, so I look around too, and I'm like, wow, I wish I had that. Wow, I wish I had that. You know what I mean? So, where, how do you go about, getting a lot of this music here?
Well, as you can see, a lot of it is decades old and still sealed. We pay more for records,
Right.
and then we've been related to the record labels and production companies and film companies, so we understand, when they're about to do reissues because we don't carry reissues.
Right.
We've been involved in about 1,200 movies, 700 television shows, and then about 2,000 plus uh, vinyl reissues and CD reissues. The very first three Gil Scott-Heron CD albums that came out, those are our covers.
Okay.
Yeah, because a lot of the companies that put them out were not the original company. It was another company got the licensing rights.
Right.
So that's how we came into play. Just so many things that are part of American culture.
Right.
So we didn't put a stop sign on that. We went into comedy. We went into personalities, and we went into children's records, and then soundtracks, and rock and roll, soul and blues, and R&B and jazz,
Right.
and soundtracks.
Okay.
So we cover the spectrum, and
You pretty much have every soundtrack that's ever been made, I think.
yeah, we're on a project right now that we're doing that.
Right.
Yeah.
Tell me about the sounder thing and how you got involved with that. And stuff like
Well, actually, this one company, Varese Saraband, they're about to reissue the Sounder soundtrack, and the gentleman Kerry Mansfield, he used to work for Motown in charge of their reissue division, and I was a archivist externally from the company at Motown. So every time they needed something, the artwork that was on the album covers and optional A sides or B sides that were white promos, the strings are different or the production's different on a promotional record in some cases, or they wanted to use it as a bonus track. So with that said, we would always stay in touch, and from the Smokey Robinson and Miracles package, the box sets on Motown, the Master Series, Mary Wells, everything, Supremes, the Temptations, Marvin Gaye box sets. Having my name on a few things is like more rewarding,
Right.
coming from the Motown era and area.
Especially being from Michigan.
Yeah, and so when I see Smokey, he and his, he knows,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
so and Barry Gordy, same thing. He poked me
Yeah.
in the stomach last time, he looked like, because he's on a good diet and I'm not.
Right. I know that's right.
But he's got good living
Right,
up in
right.
Bel Air. Good living, yeah,
Right.
good living.
So you've been able to work with, pretty much, everybody in the music game. Is it anybody in particular that you were kind of like, wow, I just met this guy, or wow, this has been a dream of mine to
Well, Quincy Jones.
Quincy Jones?
Quincy Jones, when my name appeared on one of his albums, I was like,
Wow.
I'm done.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
I've arrived.
Right.
I got out the music business in '83 and doing charity work and other things. I was a videographer, and in Washington D.C., self-taught. A lot of things I pick up the manual, and you just got to go
Right.
for it.
Right.
But a friend of mine wanted me to produce some records that he said are never going to go to radio. But we're going to use the same musicians as Quincy and Michael Jackson and Madonna and
Right.
Elton John. So I knew those musicians because I sold instruments to them.
Okay.
Matter of fact, I sold Lenny Kravitz's first electric guitar when he was 14.
Wow.
He looked like Michael from Good Times.
Yeah.
He was just 14.
Wow.
But he that guitar movement, that we had that exchange, and it was a very nice opportunity for him,
Right.
because he was able to go into an electric style from his acoustic guitar. But I got into producing some music. Leon Haywood was always around in places that we were going and things like that. And so using those same studios, then one day the owner of the company, and I was watching some boxing, and he's like a Mike Tyson in size. He said, I was in the Army, and I used to box. He said, why don't we close the studio up and go in the boxing business? I'm watching, watching Wide World of Sports on Saturday, and Monday I'm in a suit. He and I in the gym at Joe Louis Gym in Venice, California, at a boxing gym.
Wow.
So flipped the script. We're going to be boxing managers. So we stayed in there for about 3 weeks, and then this one tall guy comes up and says, I hear you guys are looking for a fighter. This gym didn't have any ventilation. I was just, I was beat up, and I said, where is he? And he took it like an insult. He said, it's me, Marvin Campbell, IBF Cruiserweight Champion of the world.
Yeah.
Well, using those skills in writing contracts for music, later that week we signed him.
Okay.
And so I was the youngest co-manager of a world champion and trainer.
Wow.
Yeah, so then that door opened up because our company car was a Rolls Royce, and we had in front of that building car space for two. But I think a Rolls Royce deserves to take it all,
Right.
because you don't want to get the car hit.
Yeah.
So then about 2 more weeks later, I'm sitting in the gym. I'm actually in the ring. Hit the gloves, champ. Hit the gloves, champ. And then I hear this voice. Whose Rolls Royce is parked in my Rolls Royce spot?
Uh-oh.
And I looked over, and it was Muhammad Ali. And so the next biggest highlight. And so for 2 years, 10 minutes a week, Ali would ask me to come into to the manager's office that had no ventilation in there as well.
Yeah.
And that's where the boxers would come in and pay. Full sweat.
Wow.
Standing in there counting out their $1 bills.
Wow.
And so this room, you had to learn how to tolerate it because of the odor. But Ali and I would go in this room and listen to the teachings.
Oh, okay.
And so for 2 years, 10 minutes a week, every day, Muhammad Ali. That's something I will never forget.
Now I saw a Muhammad Ali record out there, Cassius Clay record.
Yes,
I should say,
yes.
out there when we walked up.
Mhm.
You have more stuff with him on it?
There's one other one. There's a Cassius, Muhammad Ali. That's the last Cassius Clay album that he did.
Right.
And then he, I think that was 63 when he was Cassius Clay, coming out of Louisville, Kentucky, and then he converted to Islam. And so he then changed his name to Muhammad Ali.
Right.
So all things in print that was of him that he endorsed became Muhammad Ali.
Okay.
And he would not particularly sign too many things Cassius Clay.
Right.
I do have a couple of things he did sign for me as Cassius Clay.
Wow.
In the 90s, matter of fact.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. That's beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
So Quincy Jones, you have a relationship. What?
Not
he's asking-
relationships. I mean, I'm not on auto dial on these
No,
phones.
well, I mean, they come to you
Through a source.
for a source for something that they need from you. So
Yes.
he recently reached out to you for what?
There was an event that is requiring him to be a participant in, and they wanted to have him give 50 signed Thriller albums to some other people that are friends of this corporation.
Right.
And so I believe he was in the Montrose Summit in Switzerland when I had finished acquiring the 50 perfect condition original Thriller. But this is some of the stuff that records have been. These are records that got like the letter P because this is the program. These records have been used, touched by Dre, touched by some of the greatest producers in hip hop, East Coast and West Coast. It's a storage place right now because we serve it as a library for in calls. Like we have been on call for Def Jam Records for 27, 28 years. So if they can't find it, I get the call.
And you the go-to guy.
I'm the go-to guy. They got hundreds of record stores between New York to the West Coast, but I'm the source. His credit card's on file. So these records here, unless I have duplicates or triplicates, do not get sold.
Because these are rare.
They're not necessarily rare. It's just a point of convenience when necessary.
Okay.
I mean, I got this whole row is all drummers, just drums, just drummers. Some of it even signed. Let's see. Their drummer Bernard Purdy, signed. And if people don't know who he is, he's the one, when you hear the song Rock Steady by Aretha Franklin, he's the one that created a dynamic accent with the hi-hat. He's been drumming for, he's one of the most recorded drummers in the world and have even recorded for the Beatles. It's been, a great opportunity. I mean, there's a lot of people I miss. Sammy Davis Jr. Yeah. I got a chance to meet, and Bobby Womack was a dear friend. You know, I used to find studios for Bobby, and just people that have passed on. You know, and
Right.
we pray for good health. And over the years, you know, you just take it with the bitter with the sweet.
Right.
And of course, you know how volatile the rap industry was. So somebody you could be seeing at an event like a Tupac or a Biggie, and all of a sudden you read the paper the next following week they're gone. And,
Right.
you know, so much great talent, you know. But I tell other people, you know, can you walk over to the piano and hit the note A?
Right.
You know, at least have your foundations, because this industry, whether it's in film, writing, publishing, acting, music, turns at a blink of an eye.
Yeah, it does.
And you got to have your foundations somewhere.
Right.
These records don't talk back to me.
Right. Right.
So,
right.
so you know, when I see Lust for Life with Kirk Douglas,
Right. I see that.
I met him.
Okay.
You know. So when I see the Shaft album
Right.
with Richard Roundtree, I met him.
Right.
When I see the Kung Fu album
Wow.
with David Carradine,
I've never seen
I
that.
met him. Yeah, so when I see All in the Family, Archie Bunker, I met him. You know, so you know, Eartha Kitt over here,
Yeah.
you know, who played Catwoman in the TV series Batman.
Right.
I met her.
Right.
You know, so
Richard Pryor? You mean Richard Pryor?
I met Richard Pryor on the fly. You know,
Yeah.
some people always lie.
Right.
Yeah, we had drinks and things.
Yeah,
No,
yeah,
I
yeah.
tell it like it go.
Yeah.
He came to Flint, Michigan, and I gave the story away just too soon there.
Right.
My brother graduated a year behind me, and so I went to his graduation, and it was outdoors, you know, summer festive thing, June, and there was a girl that lived 2 blocks away from us all her life on Parkway Street. Her name was Renee Hightower, and so my brother's last name is Donan, so I sat through ceremoniously, and then there's Renee Hightower, and it said, and the next one is for Miss Renee Hightower. A gentleman stood up in the crowd and said, "That's my daughter," and that was Richard Pryor.
Wow.
So I didn't meet Richard Pryor. I
Right.
just said, "That's Richard Pryor."
Wow.
Yeah,
That's crazy.
yeah.
So man, I'm enjoying being around all this vinyl, man. I wish we could just sit here for hours and talking about this stuff. I think I need to just put a recorder by your side and just let you just tell all these stories, 'cause, you know, we can do this, man, forever.
Well, Frank, you
Man.
have a passion, and that's why, you know, like I said earlier, I don't take interviews.
Yeah.
You know, I give interviews
I appreciate it.
to the IRS and other people.
Yeah, right.
But you know,
Yeah.
but you know, we you know, when I met Jay-Z, he didn't realize I owned a third of Show Me What You Got with him. He was like, "You own that?" I'm like,
Right.
"Yeah." So you know, so there's things that you know, I've been very fortunate. I have a lovely wife, Monette, who's
Right.
been by my side, you know, through thick and thin and thick and thin.
Right.
And so, you know, we've been to about 28, 29 countries, because I remember Miss Calloway, my kindergarten teacher in Flint, Michigan. She reminded me of the woman that was pleasingly plump, that dressed in a Sunday best, and and she had a Cadillac in 1960, and then she just said, "See the world," and nobody guessed that, she was trying to explain how it was different in Europe,
Right.
and how it was different in other parts of the world. And so when you hear these things from your teachers, and I paid attention.
Right.
When they said, do your homework, I did my homework. Sometimes before I left the class. So I would then leave class. I got my library card when I was legal age and went down there and read the other book that they didn't let you read in the public school system about Daniel Boone or Davy Crockett,
Right.
or Napoleon Bonaparte. So you hear the other sides of it. They were tax evaders, and
Right.
that's why they left and went to the Alamo. And people say, "Well, they were standing up for the country." No, they were they were fleeing. They killed Indians and
Right.
stuff like that. So we have to embrace information when we get it, but you have to be open to get it.
Right.
And you have to be out there to get it.
Right.
And so that's why, when I walk into other people's record stores, I can tell within 30 seconds to a minute what they're capable of having.
Right.
Whether I'm walking in the cobblestone streets of Brussels and Bruges,
Right.
or I'm in Munich, or I'm in Beijing, or Japan in the stores, or Singapore, or New Zealand, or Australia, and
Right.
Paris. So these are things I saw as a kid watching these TV shows that were directors who thought that they should do these movies. And I thought, well, maybe I should go see this.
Right.
Because Miss Calloway was a big inspiration. Miss Battle,
Right.
Mr. Tardy, my basketball coach.
Right.
He was my algebra coach, too.
Right.
Because if you didn't have good grades, you weren't playing on the team.
Man, I
For-
got a lot of mentors like that too. So it's good that you say stuff like that, because those are the people that really put that foundation into you to do what you
Family always, was able to be a bedrock of that,
Right,
and that's
right.
what counts.
That's beautiful.
Mhm.
Well, I appreciate you, man. I thank you for allowing me
Frank,
the
thank
pleasure
you
of
so
doing
much,
this, man.
man.
It's been a pleasure, man.
Thank you.
Man, Mr. Kevin Donan, as the record turns in Hollywood, this man is an iconic figure in music and in entertainment. Please, man, pay ode to him as much as you can. And this is the Vinyl Room on Famous Hip Hop Radio. And I'm Uncle Frank, and I'll see you guys later. Thank you.